Hello, I'm Aidan Magee and this is the Goal transfer list, compiled to highlight the maximum payout of all the major clubs relating to all major transfers over the last 12 months, including agents' fees and all other associated costs. This year's top 10 will cost the clubs involved a combined total of €1.5 billion at the end of a record-breaking 12 months for investment in football's top stars. I'm joined today by Goal's Greg Stobart and Peter Staunton. Peter, can I come to you first? Let's talk about Luis Suarez. What kind of value so far have Barcelona had from that transfer?
Massive transfer, biggest name in world football probably after the World Cup due to the biting incidents with Chiellini. Fair to say it's been a slow start so far for Suarez. Always going to be difficult for any forward going to Barcelona to try and live with Lionel Messi taking up so much of that limelight. But you know, as time goes on and as the season progresses, you're going to see Suarez not so much come good, but do an awful lot better for Barcelona and really fill that sort of secondary slot up front alongside Messi.
I think we're already seeing that Suarez was far more valuable to Liverpool than he will ever be to Barcelona. As Pete said, playing with Messi is always going to be difficult because any big name striker is still going to have to play second fiddle. We've seen Neymar take a year to adapt to doing that, but in the past, Ibrahimovic, even David Villa, you never really saw the best of him, and I do worry it'll be the same with Suarez.
But they allowed Alexis Sanchez to go. Who's had the best of that transaction overall?
Well, I don't think there's an awful lot in it. They're both players who like to get in behind the spaces, behind defences, and that's what Barcelona need with Neymar and Messi, who like the ball to feet. For me, I think when you look at the money Barcelona have spent on Suarez, they'd have been better off keeping Alexis and investing in the defence because they've signed Mathieu and Vermaelen, who are third-rate defenders when really they needed a top-class centre-back and a right-back.
What about Real Madrid? They allowed Angel Di Maria to join Manchester United, of course. They signed James Rodriguez. How do you assess that?
Well, I don't think there's an awful lot in it. I don't know about you, Pete, but I think they're different types of player. You've got Di Maria, who's more explosive and was very important in the Decima triumph last season. But you know what Real Madrid do. They buy the flavour of the month. And after the World Cup, James Rodriguez, he was the guy we were all talking about. He was a top goal scorer at the World Cup. And it's a classic Real Madrid deal, really. The
fear of losing Xabi Alonso and Angel Di Maria was actually worse than the reality. You know, they've not really missed a beat in the Champions League. They're top of La Liga. It's been a very straightforward season so far for Carlo Ancelotti, even though he's had to do without the likes of Sami Khedira and, of course, Luka Modric due to injury. And what we've seen is Isco and James Rodriguez himself drop back into the midfield. And, you know, it's brought a different aspect to Rodriguez's game going to Real Madrid, where, you know, at Monaco and for Colombia, he's very much that number 10, but he takes on more responsibility and he's a better all-round player for Real Madrid than he is for Colombia.
I think the other point with Di Maria is he did want to leave. He couldn't agree a new contract with Real Madrid. He flirted a lot with PSG. That couldn't happen because of FFP, but he wanted to leave. So when the massive bid comes in from Manchester United and you've already got Rodriguez, you sell.
On the subject of United, let's talk about them for a bit. 3 players on this list. Di Maria, one of those.
Yeah, well, they're the richest club in the Premier League. They promote themselves as the biggest club in the world, and they've had to spend their way out of trouble. They finished 7th last season, so with the deficiencies in the squad, I mean, you know, we could name holes all over the place. They needed a huge rebuild, and they've done it. They started with Mata in January. We've got Luke Shaw and Di Maria on this list, but, you know, they've also got players like Herrera and Blind who'd probably be pushing it close as well.
But it must be said, Peter, €500 million is an eye-watering amount, even for a club like Manchester United.
Yeah, well, United are in a double bind because obviously they need players. I mean, the squad fell into a state of disrepair by the time that Alex Ferguson left. But clubs all around Europe are very, very prepared for Manchester United's bids now. And they know the desperation that United are conducting their transfer campaigns with. So when Angel Di Maria is approached and Real Madrid are approached for that transfer, it's €75 million for a Real Madrid substitute. You know, that represents much better business on Real Madrid's part than it does for Manchester United's. And similarly, 40 million for Juan Mata from the Chelsea substitutes bench as well. They're deals that not only hint at desperation, they cry desperation. And until Manchester United go back into the transfer market, having the power of attracting players to them, rather than, you know, desperately sending out the signal that they really need somebody, then you're going to see these inflated prices and wages as well, as Di Maria would testify to.
OK, so that's Manchester United's spending. By comparison, the spending of Manchester City and PSG doesn't look quite so extravagant.
Well, of course, they had their hands tied in the transfer market by their FFP punishment, and that meant that they couldn't compete for players like Di Maria. I'm pretty sure Di Maria would be playing for PSG now if it wasn't for that fine. And you look at Man City as well. They needed some attacking players, really, and we've seen that this season, but the only really big name they've got is Eliakim Mangala, and so far he's looking pretty shoddy.
What about Chelsea, Pete? Because lots of people in the summer back there were talking about the great business they did. How does it look now?
It looks fantastic. David Luiz, obviously, and Juan Mata, 2 players on this list sold from Chelsea. And have they really strengthened the teams that they've gone to? I'm not so sure. Then look at the replacements that Chelsea have brought in. You know, they've brought in Diego Costa and Cesc Fabregas, who both appear on this list. 2 excellent signings, probably 2 of the best players in the Premier League this season. And it shows a cleverness and in the Chelsea transfer campaign. You know, they identified that there was a weakness up front last season in Fernando Torres, so they go out and they spend on the best striker from the Champions League. There was a weakness in the creative department in central midfield, so then they bring in Cesc Fabregas. They're cruising in the Champions League, they're cruising to the Premier League title. They're probably favourites for those 2 major trophies, and it's probably all to do with the transfer business they conducted in 2014.
But Greg, for Chelsea, it's not just about the players they signed, it's also the players they let go.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen them turn a profit for the first time in God knows how long under Roman Abramovich. They've sold Romelu Lukaku for £28 million. David Luiz, I don't think their defence looks any worse, certainly. It's probably stronger than ever this season. I think they've done some absolutely fantastic business, and you know, you look at the money that's been spent in the transfer market in 2014, but Chelsea are the kings.
OK guys, thanks for now. Don't forget, for more on the Goal transfer list, just log on to Goal.